Good afternoon and welcome to folks joining us for the inaugural EnergyTech University Prize. We are super excited to have incredible teams from across the Midwest. We are going to get started in just a couple minutes. We recognize it takes everybody a moment to come into the audience, so just bear with us as we allow a moment for guests to join. And Sam Blythe, you can go ahead and turn your video off until it's your turn to present. And welcome to Anna Chittum.
Hey.
Hi. All right, I see lots of participants coming in. So just to give us another minute here to allow folks to join the webinar. Always takes just a few clicks once things open up, and we will get things kicked off. All right, when the slides go up, means we are officially kicking things off. So welcome to all of our guests joining us for our inaugural EnergyTech University Prize, brought to us by the Department of Energy and the Office of Technology Transition. It is the first time we are doing the EnergyTech UP, so really excited for those who are participating and those who are supporting the process. It's always fun being part of something new. Lots of really exciting aspects to it, and appreciate everybody being here to support these great student teams, really making that connection between technology, innovation, and invention, and getting things out into the marketplace where we need them to solve the world's problems. I'm Nina Axelson. I'm the founder of Grid Catalyst. We were launched in 2021 as a Northern climate-focused energy accelerator. We are partnered with Clean Energy Economy Minnesota, a nonprofit working to advocate and advance clean energy businesses here in Minnesota. So we're really excited to be your host for the day. It is exciting to be part of something with all these great students and our judges and keynote speaker today, Deepinder Singh. So about the EnergyTech University Prize, for those who haven't been tracking in a detailed fashion, there are several phases to this. We are in the explore phase here, where teams are pitching at regional events. Teams came to their ideas in a variety of ways. They looked at what kind of emerging technology was coming out of Department of Energy and their associated labs to look at promising opportunities. Some of the teams are actually working on some of these products in their own lab and studies at their own colleges and universities. So really exciting mix of backgrounds coming into our explore phase. Those who are selected out of this phase of winners will go on to the refine phase to continue developing their market analysis and what they've been evaluating for their technology. And then there will be a national pitch in Pittsburgh in March. So really exciting to see how this process is developing for the student teams that are participating. We will have one Northern Plains winner announced today who will go on to that national competition. And then there are actually department level winners that will be selected that have the opportunity to go on to the national pitch out of specific technology categories. So we may have a winner in one of those advanced from today, but it's not something that happens in every regional group. So just give a sense of the national participation here. So exciting that there's 180 teams You can see that participation cluster here for the Northern Plains, part of the Midwest, and I'm really excited to see that representation from our region and see all these schools participating. So can imagine if we get this kind of participation in year 1, year 2 is just going to be off the charts. So now I'm going to turn it over to our expert judges to give a short introduction. I just will say personally, I have tremendous amount of respect for these 3 folks and felt like just an absolute winner that we got to have them come in and be part of this event today. So just to have them go in order. Pat, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself first.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. Hello, everyone. My name is Pat Dillon, and I am the founder and director of the Minnesota SBIR and STTR Accelerator. Essentially, we help startups and small businesses access federal research funding to help commercialize their product or service.
Thank you, Pat. Ben, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Ben Ide. I am the coordinator of an initiative called Forge North, which works with people like Nina, Pat, and all the entrepreneurs that they serve to understand all the resources in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area that are available for entrepreneurs and, grow the pool of funding, increase racial equity, increase enterprise engagement. Privileged to be here.
Thank you, Ben. And Anna.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm Anna Chittum, and I'm the Director of Renewable Resources at Northwest Natural, which is actually the gas utility serving Portland, Oregon, Western Oregon, Southwest Washington. So I'm here on the other side of the country. And we do a lot of work to bring renewable natural gas and renewable hydrogen to our customers. And so really interested in decarbonizing heat. So very, very excited to hear from a lot of the presentations today. So thank you.
Thank you. I have to say that it is incredible to think about these, the great careers and expertise of these 3 judges. So I encourage you to check them out on LinkedIn and find ways to connect with them in their work. They're all just really incredible folks. I appreciate them keeping their bios small, even though their work is tremendous. So thankful that they could be with us today. We'll have about 2 hours of presentations here today from our students. And at 4 o'clock, we will be joined by Deepinder Singh, who is the co-founder and CEO of 75F. It's just an incredible company that started here in Minnesota and a really great success story on someone very clever thinking about how to solve technical problems and then being able to scale that up from that initial idea and tremendous growth into the marketplace. So just someone we really hope that our students can look to as a success story in this field. Just a couple other little housekeeping things before I move into a message from Dr. Vanessa Chan. So we are not set up for Q&A for today's session. So the students are not anticipating answering questions from our judges or from our participants. However, if you're having any trouble hearing something, seeing something, you have something you'd like to follow up with after, you can still add something into the chat and we'll go ahead and we'll save that chat for later. So we want to make sure that if there are connections to be made or clarifications to be made, that you're able to make those connections through this presentation. So that is an important part of why we're here today. There will be an opportunity with our speaker at 4 o'clock to have Q&A, so that'll be separately managed. And unfortunately, our judges will be off convening to make some determinations about our winners, so they won't be participating in that part. But both our students and our guests are welcome to ask questions during that presentation. So now if you just give me a moment, I'm gonna load up a message from Dr. Chan, who's the Chief Commercialization Officer for the Department of Energy, Director of Office of Technology Transitions. And you'll have to bear with me as I go through my own technology fun of making sure you can hear it. All right.
Welcome to the inaugural EnergyTech University Prize Competition. I'm Vanessa Chan, the Director of the Office of Technology Transitions, or OTT for short, and also the Chief Commercialization Officer of the Department of Energy. As a sponsoring office of EnergyTech UP, I can say that all of us here at OTT are humbled by the fact that we have seen a huge surge of enthusiasm from student teams, colleges and universities, incubators, and energy industry organizations. In fact, with 180 total applications from 113 schools, our inaugural cadre of teams represent 42 states, plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. Not too shabby for our very first one. My thanks go out to my team at OTT, to the invaluable support we received from the National Renewable Energy Lab team, our partnering regional conveners, as well as the students themselves for their hard work. My vision for the goals and outcomes of this competition are: 1, to strengthen the energy innovation community across the US and territories; 2, to identify business opportunities for young entrepreneurs; and 3, to help lay a talent pipeline that will secure our energy future. We hope you all can take this opportunity to network and get to know the work going on in your region, because collaborators across schools catalyze future partnerships. Our mission at OTT is to help shepherd technologies through the research, development, demonstration, and deployment, or RD&D continuum, to ensure they are commercialized and brought to the market. You're about to hear several inspiring, innovative ideas to do just that. This is an exciting time to be a budding entrepreneur, because a clean energy transition is upon us. It will be revolutionary for our world, and we need all hands on deck to make it happen. Today, you are all on deck to play a role as you think and work towards that future. The students of today are the innovators, scientists, marketing specialists, policymakers, and entrepreneurs that we need. So with that, good luck, and may the best business plan win. But not to be too cheesy, you guys have all won by participating, because this is what we have to do to go hit our climate targets. Good luck.
Maybe it is just the excitement of the day, and maybe it is just all of the incredible things that are coming from the Department of Energy in this past year. It just feels like just such an incredible time to be working in clean energy, clean tech, climate innovation, science and technology, you know, being able to connect with these students and see what ideas they have for the future. I'm just filled with excitement and hope for today's session and the work that's ahead. So with that, I'm going to get us set up for our first presentation, and we will have our students begin our series here. So just give me one moment to get things set up for Sam Hunt, who will be talking about a novel approach to harnessing the ocean's power. All right, take it away, Sam.
Hello, my name is Sam Hunt, and I am representing Proteus Energy. Thank you for having us today. Next slide, please. So the US consumes a lot of energy in a given year, but the question is, how do we source all this energy with clean and renewable energy? Next slide. Have you ever looked out into the ocean and found yourself in awe at the power of every wave? That raw energy has the potential to power homes and businesses across the United States. But how can we harness it into usable benefits like electricity and desalinated water? Next slide, please. So our business utilizes a technology that will help fulfill the following UN Sustainable Development Goals shown here. Next slide, please. Utility companies have made public commitments to decarbonizing their energy portfolios through renewables, but existing zero carbon options have their respective issues. Solar and wind power are not continuous, since the sun is not always shining and the wind is not always blowing. This is clearly problematic, as these energy sources cannot always provide for peak electricity periods. Nuclear energy also has its related risks with potential plant malfunction and radioactive waste disposal. This has led utility companies to having to rely on fossil fuels as backups to their renewable portfolios. Next slide, please. So wave energy provides a great opportunity for filling the gaps in the existing renewable energy complex. But existing wave energy tech has major problems. So rigid body converters are the dominant wave energy technology right now. Their designs are centered on large rigid structures that float in the water and move relative to each other as waves roll past. And they convert that energy into a central conversion mechanism. But these devices are very difficult to install. They require frequent maintenance. They're less resilient to harsh ocean environments, so they're more prone to fail. They capture inadequate energy from waves, and they require more expensive and rare materials. Next slide, please. So our tech uses what are called distributed and embedded energy converters that enable the creation of flexible wave energy conversion, which can harvest energy from a wide range of ocean wave heights and frequencies. And so this revolutionizes the way we can capture and convert wave energy to provide electricity on land, as well as power marine enterprise like navigation buoys and marine vehicles. This tech could significantly support the Department of Energy's Powering the Blue Economy initiative as well. So these energy converters are assembled from many small energy converters that together form a structure that can undulate like a snake, stretch and bend like a sheet of fabric, expand and contract like a balloon. So as the overall structure bends, twists, or changes shape, as these ocean waves are rolling past, each energy converter can turn a portion of that ocean wave energy into electricity. So these flexible converters, in contrast to rigid converters, have much more resilient structures that can survive way harsher ocean environments. They have a much greater range of energy capture, so they have a higher yield. They have lower maintenance costs, and they're much easier to install because they're mechanically simpler. Next slide, please. So, So our mission is to lead the cutting edge industry of wave technology to accelerate the energy transition. We hope to fully harness the raw power of the world's oceans to supply clean and reliable energy for the United States and hopefully soon the entire world. Next slide, please. So the theoretical annual energy potential of waves off the coast of the United States alone is estimated to be as much as 2.64 trillion kilowatt hours, or 2/3 of the US electricity generation in 2020. So there's a massive energy capture potential that utility companies could profit greatly from through these converters. Our tech greatly improves the reliability, consistency, and capture potential of wave energy, making it a revolutionary energy source. Companies with our tech would be significantly less reliant on fossil fuels as backups to solar and wind energy. In coastal regions especially, our product could greatly fill the gap left by other renewables. Next slide, please. So here's another diagram from the Department of Energy showing the technical power of marine energy sources. Our metric of success would be seeing these wave energy sources gradually take up a greater portion of energy sources in the United States. And so more utility companies using wave energy in their portfolios means they're less reliant on carbon emitting sources. Next slide, please. So desalination plants would also greatly benefit from our wave energy tech. As water scarcity becomes a greater issue in this country, especially in the Western regions, desalination plants are going to become much more numerous. But this process is often decried as unsustainable due to the energy intensive processes involved. These processes involve fossil fuels. And our low-cost renewable energy can solve the problems with desalination because we are renewable, we have a high-yield source of energy, and we are close to coastal regions, so they can be put in very close proximity to the desalination plants, making it potentially economically and environmentally feasible. Next slide, please. So our competitors, we can beat almost any other wave energy company right now because we're one of the only US located companies, utility driven, that is in possession of these novel flexible wave energy converters. We also beat other forms of renewable and low carbon energy sources in having an overall levelized cost of energy, which is just a metric of comparative net cost of electricity generation. So experts predict that our tech can reach a levelized cost of energy as low as $21 per megawatt hour, making it 25% cheaper than wind energy, which is already the cheapest common energy source in the US. It's also 10 times cheaper than current wave energy tech. Next slide, please. So our business plan follows a business-to-business model where our customers and key partners are utilities companies and desalination plants, most likely located in coastal regions of the US. Our role will be providing installation and maintenance of the flexible energy converters, and our service will be cost competitive because our tech is easier and less expensive to install, and the materials required are less expensive than those for rigid converters. They're also recyclable. Next slide, please. So as a business, we plan to break even on every installation, charging strictly the cost of the product materials, construction, and labor costs. And our profit will be made through monthly payments from our customers as a form of tech rental. We'll also provide maintenance for additional fees. Next slide, please. We plan to employ local workers in coastal areas where the tech will be implemented because coastal communities could be displaced by the tech. So we want to be able to employ them as much as we can. Next slide, please. So our partners will include the US government through the Department of Energy and the National Research Lab. And yeah, so that is our current plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. For our audience, just to let you know that one of the ways we're trying to track for timing is putting the slides up and taking them down. So if it's you're trying to figure out what that cue is, it's to make sure that our students understand that time. I miss being able to stand in the front of the crowd with the countdown clock, but we don't have that now. So great job, Sam. Welcome next, Jacob, to talk about Save Your Attic, Save the World. Get your slides up here in just a moment. All right, take it away, Jacob.
Perfect. All right. Hi, I'm Jacob Strandl, the CEO of Fourier Energy, where we're looking to save your attic and save the world. So a large issue in creating an energy transition in the US is not only creating renewable energy sources, but also creating energy efficient systems, especially in housing and communities. Currently, more than half of energy use in homes is used for heating and air conditioning. And a large source of this can be a poorly insulated attic. In the summer, these attics sort of act as a hot box, driving up AC costs. And in the winter, cold air from the exterior meets with interior warmed air, which can create condensation and actually destroy a home. Next slide, please. So our solution to this problem is the Dynamic Attic Heat Exhaust System, or DAHES. This system utilizes pre-existing technologies and optimizes them to create a system that efficiently maintains attic heat throughout the day and year. Next slide. So our system leverages three main technologies that all relate to solar energy. During the summer, two of these are mainly used. Ventilation channels are installed in an attic that are actively powered by a solar-powered fan, and radiant barriers are installed on the attic, which reflect radiant energy from the sun, decreasing the total energy that enters the attic. Next slide. During the winter, our third technology, which are phase change materials, go to work. They absorb solar energy through radiation throughout the day. And then if you'll press next slide, during the evening when we get cooler, they release this energy into the attic space. So the attic maintains a pretty consistent temperature throughout the day. Next slide. So our main customers we're looking at are solar installers, but we'll also work with general construction companies as well as retrofitting companies. Essentially, due to the large access of solar power today, solar installers need a way to differentiate themselves from their competitors while offering more savings to their consumers. And our system will be minimally invasive to their business model, as they'll already be working in attics and on roofs, but allow them to increase their profit while increasing their users' savings. The main households we'll be looking at are individual households, as well as landlords who own communities of households, as well as small buildings where the system has been proven to work before. Next slide. So our main competitors today are solar fan producing companies, as well as existing phase change materials. Alternate solutions are passive ventilation systems, as well as modern insulated materials that are doing a better job. What our system does is consolidates all of these technologies into one system that is optimized for each home that it's installed in. This makes it more efficient and savings producing for the users, as well as more profitable and much more accessible for these business owners to implement. Next slide. So our overall business plan involves working with these businesses directly and designing and manufacturing and selling them our systems, as well as training and certifying their existing operators so they don't need to hire on any additional help. It'll integrate into their existing model pretty seamlessly. Then they'll work with the users, both advertising the product as well as installing, maintaining, and repairing it. This will create benefits across the board, increasing savings for users, increasing profit and ideally market share for the companies we work with, as well as driving our business's growth. Next slide. So the economic feasibility of the system is pretty straightforward. Current tests of the system show about 8% energy savings throughout a year, with an estimated $2,000 cost for a home and $1,000 cost to produce it. We're looking at about a 100% profit, while the customers will break even within roughly 12 years of savings. This does not include potential tax breaks or incentives from the government, which will drastically decrease the return on investment. Next slide. So the next steps for our business immediately, if we are offered the prize money or a similar initial investment, we would like to provide a free system to a large solar installer in the area. Essentially, this will work for us twofold in both showing them that our product works and that it can integrate with their business model, as well as showing their competitors that they require a similar technology to both remain competitive as well as increase their profits. Initially, the technology implementation will probably occur more in wealthy households who can currently afford solar installation on their homes. We would like to leverage this by offering them a buy one, give one model, where they'll buy one system for full price for their home, and then if they would like, they can buy an additional system at a reduced price, which we will then install in a lower income house in the area. This allows them to directly give back to their community, as well as allow us to spread our technology and the savings benefits to people of other financial means in the area. As we look into the future, ensuring that government incentive and tax break programs involve both energy efficiency technologies, as well as the existing programs that sort of prioritize renewable energy systems. This will allow our system to reach many more people of different financial means and really allow the nation to fully accept the technology. Overall energy efficiency shouldn't be ignored as a means of achieving a successful energy transition, and we believe that our DAHES system will allow homeowners to take this transition into their own hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a great presentation. Exciting to see all the different types of technologies and solutions that our student teams are presenting today. Inviting up next Paxton Picken to talk to us about pumping geothermal into the big leagues. Welcome, Paxton.
Hello. Could you skip to the next slide, please?
Sure.
Okay. Hello. My name is Paxton Picken, and along with my team at Jordan Geothermal, we are going to be pumping geothermal into the big leagues. Next slide, please. So the major problem we're trying to address at Jordan Geothermal is the massive amount of emissions from heating and cooling in the US every year. Currently, about 40% of the carbon dioxide emissions yearly in the US are only from heating and cooling systems. In tandem with this, we see a large underutilization of geothermal technologies, specifically in colder climates and northern regions such as Minnesota. And we also see little ambition to expand on this technology and its reach. Next slide, please. So what is geothermal? Geothermal is a renewable energy system that can be used for heating and cooling buildings. At Jordan Geothermal, we use a closed loop heat pump, which circulates groundwater through pipes down into the earth and through buildings. During the winter, water at the surface level is cold, and then it is pumped down into the earth a couple 100 feet. It is heated up by the earth's heat and then pumped back to the house and used to heat the house. During the summer, the exact opposite occurs, where warm water is pumped down to the earth, it is cooled off, and then used to cool the house. The cooling benefits of geothermal are widely noted and used across the US. However, the heating benefits are very underutilized in northern regions, and not many people think of geothermal for its heating benefits. Next slide, please. At Jordan Geothermal, we will be designing and selling geothermal systems to our customers. We will be advertising our brand and expanding our brand. And overall, we will be improving the public image of geothermal and the technology. Next slide, please. So our original market that we will be focusing on will be universities and low-income residential communities. With universities, we see universities as a great first adopter of this technology, as universities are mostly scientific based, and we believe that it would mutually improve both their public image and our public image by implementing a geothermal system at a campus. The media that comes along with such a large green project would be great for the university, and it would also be great economically for both universities and low-income residential communities. Geothermal systems are cheaper, more efficient, and last about 2 to 3 times longer than traditional HVAC systems. And in addition to this, most universities in the US and the government already have plans in place to lower their carbon emissions and are looking for ways to do this currently. And geothermal is a great option for them. Next slide, please. So where we fit into the geothermal industry is customers will pay us directly as consultants to develop a plan tailored specifically for their location and their needs of their buildings. And then we will build and implement the system for them. Next slide, please. Geothermal systems are more expensive upfront for customers. However, in just 5 to 10 years, customers will already be making their money back and saving money after that. This is due to the fact that geothermal systems have been found to save customers up to 70% annually on their heating and cooling bills. In large university buildings, this translates to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, because one building of about 50,000 square foot at a university currently costs about $100,000 in heating and cooling a year. That's a lot of money for those universities. Last slide, go back, please. And for low-income communities, this could translate to about $1,500 in savings individually in utility prices for tenants every year, which is a lot of money for people living in those, a lot of money anyway, but a lot of money for people living in those low-income residences. Next slide, please. So why choose us specifically at Jordan Geothermal? First of all, for universities, we are highly knowledgeable about the higher education system as we are a part of it right now. And in general, we are the only Minnesota-based company at the moment focused solely on large-scale geothermal. Other companies are focused on small residential geothermal or are focused on heating and cooling and other sources of energy in general and just dabble in small amounts in geothermal. Thus, we are putting all our energy into this large-scale geothermal and are the best option in this sense. Next slide, please. So what is the impact of our success? First of all, we are majorly reducing carbon emissions. That 40% number of carbon emissions from heating and cooling will be drastically lowered by low carbon emitting geothermal systems. We will also publicly boost the popularity of geothermal as people and other companies see the success of our product. And we will inspire communities to embrace clean energy in general, such as other types of energy, such as solar and wind energy, because of our renewable success. Next slide, please. Thank you for considering us at Jordan Geothermal, and we hope you are as excited about our mission as we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Paxson. Very good coverage of the geothermal opportunity. We are actually back to back with geothermal presentations at this segment of the presentations. So I'm going to invite, I think it's Shane is up next with our, great. Let me just get your slides up, Shane, and we'll get going with your turn here. Thanks everybody for your patience with the 20 clicks it takes between each session here to make everybody be in the right spot. So. All right, and we'll get your slides up here. All right, take it away, Shane.
Okay, thank you and welcome to our presentation on geothermal pipeline maintenance. Next slide, please. Taking a look at the current geothermal market assessment, upper right corner, there are 93 geothermal plants operating in the United States with 58 in current development. Our lower right-hand side is the maintenance expenses per 1,000 homes powered by geothermal, wind, solar, natural gas. As you can see, the maintenance expenses for geothermal are the leading factor here. Moving to the upper left graph, looking at geothermal market growth worldwide, the industry is projected to increase at a rate of 30.5% by 2050. Overall, the United States is projected to have a compound annual growth rate of 4.7%. Next slide, please. Geothermal plant pipelines have an interior scale building up problem that requires routine maintenance. To my upper right is an example of a utility pig tool, which is comprised of a metal body with metal scraping disc and brush for cleaning. If we look to the upper left, a problem in the industry, for example, is cleaning efficiency. The utility pig can get stuck when it hits a large scaling event in the pipeline, or it may work its way through a pipeline leaving behind debris. This is called the smearing effect. Looking to the lower right-hand side, the smearing effect, for example, can have a long-term reduction in efficiency through routine maintenance. For example, looking at the table, you can see over a 2-year quarterly maintenance schedule, the smearing effect has reduced flow in the pipeline from 2010 through 2012. Next slide, please. As a solution to this problem, we are proposing a novel approach design with an adaptive speed control. Our utility pig has a rotating interior turbine. As the pig travels through the pipeline, the turbine rotates the front outer shell with the cleaning brushes and scrapers attached. So looking to the diagram lower left side, for example, when our pigging hits this large scaling event and stops or slows down, the front shell continues to rotate, working its way through the debris. This in turn will reduce the smearing effect. Looking at the table, when we utilize a comparison matrix and analyze the effectiveness of our novel approach to other tools in the industry, our effectiveness in comparison represented by the X's, color-coded green is more effective in pipeline cleaning. Next slide, please. Taking a look at the global market scale for utility pigs, we found that North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific is the largest growing markets currently today. Specifically looking at the United States, currently the market value as of 2022 is 5.6 million, and it's forecasted by 2027 to be 10.9 million. This equates to a 5.1% compound annual growth rate in utility pig sales. To my left here, or I'm sorry, to my right here, a few of the top key pig manufacturers are represented here, and of course do not represent all the manufacturers in the industry. There's roughly about top 40. Next slide, please. In doing the economic analysis on geothermal plant operations, a routine maintenance period can range between 3 to 6 months apart. For example, a routine 15-mile long pipeline can cost between $250,000 to $350,000 and require 10 to 15 passes to achieve 90% pipeline flow efficiency. In the United States, for example, I'm looking at forecasting maintenance expenses between 2021 and 2027. This added up to $219 million. On the right-hand side, we'll discuss our overall economic assessment. We applied a first screen scoring matrix to determine economic and business plan viability. We looked at 5 factors: strength of business, industry-related issues, target market, founders, and financial issues, and ended up with a high potential for success in our scoring matrix on our business model overall. In comparing our tool, we studied many aspects of the industry. A utility pot costs roughly approximately $2,250 on the low end. Our novel approach cost to build and sell was about $4,500 per unit. With further marketing analysis, we determined the market would pay roughly between $5,000 to $7,500 per unit based on capabilities. We estimate our novel approach, if we introduce this into the market today, would have a 10.2% growth compound annually between 2027 at 4,500 units per price. Next slide, please. Looking at the potential impact maintenance has on industry, most geothermal plants do not operate at 90% flow efficiency. This to achieve is greater to achieve because it requires increased maintenance cost. The geothermal plant struggles with maintenance today because the current pigs traveling at the fluid speed of the pipeline smear or get stuck, reducing cleaning efficiency, resulting in reduced pipeline flow. We feel our novel approach indirectly benefits communities. If we take a look at the upper right graph, you will notice that geothermal jobs per 1,000 powered homes provide more jobs than wind, solar, and natural gas. We directly benefit plant operators by reducing maintenance and maintenance costs. As a result, we increase investor profits that can be turned around and reapplied in expanding the geothermal market into rural and diverse areas within the United States here. Next slide, please. Looking at our overall business plan with timeline available, it's hard for me to go into very good specifics here. However, top left, our business plan outlines what our team success criteria are, which includes these 5 areas. Moving on to the lower left corner of the slide, we have 5 perceived risk areas that look at financial risk, technical risk, management, environmental safety and health, and external factors. Upper right, we have 6 milestones mapped out for business success, which we also include subtasks that expand out for each of these areas in detail. Looking lower left, we identify what we feel would be the key skills and resources to achieve success for planning to prototyping and manufacturing to a market needs. Next slide, please. Our communication will be driven by US Microsoft project management tools. We have input and outputs, and general communication will be on a monthly basis with stakeholders on a weekly basis with core project management teams. Next slide, please. Our team is managed by Dr. Gosling, a professor at University of North Dakota with 38 years of experience in the energy field. The remaining teams are made up of PhD, master's, and undergrad students. Thank you for allowing us to do the presentation today.
Thank you, Shane. Great job representing another great geothermal team. And give me just a moment and we will transition to our next speaker, Sam Blythe, who will talk to us about electrical vehicle charger innovations. Welcome, Sam, to our event. Have your slides up in just a moment, Sam. Thanks.
All right.
Take it away.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So, hey, I'm co-founder and CEO of Beej. My name is Sam Blythe. This is the co-founder and CTO, Luis Guillen. He's our head of product development. We're coming here to talk to you today about the new advancements in the technologies regarding electric vehicle chargers and how we can best optimize position into that to generate a good commercialization strategy. Next slide, please. So this is the rough timeline of events here. 2017, 2018. Luis here, developed the initial product behind the idea, the proprietary harmonic filter. Designs and data were reviewed by the IEEE favorably. Was that correct? Yep. And then, so back in 2021 and 2022 here, we decided to partner up. We founded this company, performed initial customer discovery. Through our initial customer discovery, I was able to determine some value propositions, draft commercialization plans, and start moving this sort of project along. You can hit the next slide, please. So we have our, trying to identify a technology here. The biggest issue we've seen with electric vehicle charging, not only just level 1, level 2, and even in fast charging. And Luis actually found all this information. They're not really working in terms of maximizing the efficiency. You can go back to this next back slide, please. Forward one. Perfect. Thank you. But we found out that there were a lot of inefficiencies occurring. That some of these a lot of these chargers are not producing at the level they need to, and they're dumping a lot of energy into the vehicle and not really maximizing the efficiency of it, and it's leading to a lot of power loss and a lot of wasted energy. Technology we provided, which is called our proprietary harmonic filter, basically what it does is that it mitigates that energy loss caused from the inverter process when it converts from AC to DC, DC to AC, and that creates a sort of energy loss. This results up to a 99% efficiency with about an average of about 95, 97%. You can head to the next slide, please. This is the rough kind of design of the model itself. You can hit the next slide, please. You can go next slide. Yep. And yeah, so this is kind of, we want to outline here. This was the part of the initial presentation he presented to the IEEE. As you can see with this with the diagrams here, over on the top right corner, top left corner actually, you'll notice that there is a big gap between the voltage and amperage being measured here. That gap is power loss and other inefficiencies. And you'll notice here too, just beneath that, you'll notice how despite it going through the inverter process and trying to charge a device, you'll notice how it's not operating at only 60 hertz. There is 180 hertz, 300 hertz, down the line, and it's finding these sort of things that should not be happening, and that's just wasted energy. You look at the right side, and you'll notice this is after applying the harmonic filter. All the waveforms between the volts and the amperages have stabilized, and as you see here with the top right corner, that any and all readings that were 60 hertz have dropped to basically next to nothing. So that shows kind of just this one technology alone was able to solve this much energy loss. We can hit next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So with our market assessment here, we have a lot of pain points. The amount of chargers, the availability of chargers, the charge times, and the affordability chargers were the top pain points in our customer discovery. We can move next slide, please. And significant competitor here would be Tritium. They've received a federal contract for their EV charger deployments across the United States. However, historically, they've only had a small regional distribution, and they not entirely on their 350 kilowatt that they intend on developing. Also, they intend to develop solely on their own sort of infrastructure and kind of build it up themselves. We don't have that sort of weakness. We intend to work with gas supply chains and gas station sort of details, since they have the infrastructure in place to pull this off. And not only are our costs significantly lower, up to 30% less, we also have state funding available to produce to deploy our systems as well. You can hit next slide, please. And as I just mentioned, we have the location ability, we have the available partners with the gas stations, we have the ability to target these sort of locations better, and there's still government funding available. Next slide, please. And as I outlined, no one's providing the need for affordable charging. You will notice reports coming out of charging stations across the nation. They're either taken up, they're have too much cost, too much time, and they lack the affordability, the partnerships, and development we have. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, the average 50 kilowatts charging had 50,000. Tritium's is over at 105,000. Ours is only 70K for the same level of charge. Next slide, please. And this is the cost breakdown. In the end, with a $70,000 payout, we have a net profit margin of 13.6%. And those are the costs there. Next slide, please. Yep, and then a solution will lead to these sort of global impacts. Next slide, please. Societal, the affordability will drive more adoption, will improve quality. Okay, yes, we're done. All right, you guys have a good one.
Thank you, Sam and team. Very, very thorough analysis and great to see the innovation that you've brought to this opportunity. Hopefully at some future date, when you're presenting on the big stage, folks can see the rest of that presentation. Just as a reminder to those joining us, each team is allowed 7 minutes for their presentation. So we do make sure that we have everybody on the same timeline. We are not doing Q&A if you've just joined us, but you're welcome to add things to the chat or connect with our student presenters through the chat. We want you to feel connected even if we're not doing a traditional Q&A. We have Jack coming in next to talk to us about alternating current photovoltaic building blocks. So Jack, give me a moment to get your slides up. And I also don't mind that we're going a little bit of time in between because it gives our judges a little bit of a moment to take a breath and get their notes from each presenter. So instead of thinking about me taking 20 clicks, think about giving our judges a little bit of extra time. So, all right, Jack, let me get your slides up and we will get going. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jack Beebe, and I'm the CEO of PV Power Block Group. Next slide, please. So the problem a lot of solar panel technology faces is that it takes a lot of consultation to find out what you need in order to connect your energy to the house or grid. It's hard to know exactly what you need to run your power through in order to make it compliant with whenever you're connecting it to. On top of that, it can be costly to receive this information, and even more so to have someone come and install an inverter or a J-box or whatever it is you need. You also have to worry about backfeeding back into the solar array. All of these are discouragements for people wanting to install solar in their houses, businesses, etc. But what if I told you there was a solution? Next slide, please. Our product counteracts these problems by being able to manipulate the power going through it into common standards. It can turn DC into AC, can turn AC into DC, AC into different AC. You see where I'm going. It does this by using timers inside the unit, simulating an AC output, or if you don't need it, it can output DC power as well. The unit is also easy to install, making it a true plug-and-play device. We don't necessarily recommend that you do it yourself, but it is indeed an option if you're confident in your abilities. Next slide, please. Here we have an unbiased table that we made. Our product is cheaper than the traditional transformer. It has a battery inside. It can do any kind of output you would want, and you can do it all by yourself or with the help of an experienced installer. Next slide, please. So our solar PV block is designed specifically for easy plug and play solar applications. Our features will allow us to not only distinguish a diverse overall market, but also allow for easy expansion of our serviceable markets. Using this approach to launching and developing our product will give us the opportunity to create a tool that is beneficial to anyone who needs help installing a residential solar array, along with small business formats. As seen in the figure, our market starts with anyone who wants to utilize solar energy. Over time, we anticipate growth to residents and small businesses all across the country, particularly the Southwest, effectively solidifying our place within the market for years to come. Next slide, please. Obviously, like with any startup, it may be a little bit expensive initially, but as our company grows, it will be more cost effective to install our power block over other inverters. The traditional inverter is around $1,500, including installation costs. We're estimating and hoping that we can get this cost down to 1/3 of that number. This is because it's always cheaper to do something yourself rather than hiring someone to do it for you. Next slide, please. We believe that an integral part of solar panel growth is going to be from lots of smaller private entities choosing to install, such as homeowners, renters. Gone are the days of massive solar farms, and here come the day where individual people decide to put solar panels on their own roof. We think our product is perfect for that. We're hoping that residential households and smaller businesses will decide to take the leap and put solar panels on their buildings. And when they do that, our product can help with it. This will be especially beneficial to those who otherwise could not afford solar panel technology. For example, Native American reservations have become a place where cutting-edge energy technology can blossom. We're hoping that making solar cheaper allows all people to install panels, not just those who have thousands of dollars burning holes in their pockets. Next slide, please. The essentials of our company are obviously mainly support and distribution. We need support in case people need help installing our products, and we need distribution because that's how we're going to get our products to people. Our goal of this project is to encourage the growth of solar panels and to make it more cost-effective, accessible, and adaptable. Next slide, please. If given the opportunity, we would like to get a prototype. If given the opportunity, we would like to get a prototype working so that we can show our ideas. We would then like to find investors and mentors to support us in our efforts. Feedback is very important to us, and we will always be willing to hear from people who use our product. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, thank you. End of presentation.
Thanks, Jack. Great job. Appreciate your efforts on that presentation, and learned a lot, as I have with every other presentation so far. We are actually running a couple of minutes ahead, so I'm going to allow us just an extra minute here because we are halfway through, and because we've got a little bit of extra time here. Again, just let our judges catch their breath, catch up on any notes they've been making on the scoring. We are hoping to present the winner at the end of today's event after our keynote speaker. So the more space we give our judges to do their deliberation, the better. And also maybe a great moment, I see people coming into the chat to congratulate our speakers and give them all the virtual high fives. So you can take a moment to do that as well. I just think they're doing a tremendous job so far. But we'll take about another minute break here, and then we will come back. Don't go anywhere, but we'll just give a moment before Gavin gives us our next presentation on recycling of spent lithium-ion batteries. And I'll get that presentation loaded up and we'll get going in just a moment. For those who know me, you realize that even just sitting in silence is like my challenge of the day. I'm good with the public speaking part. It's the sitting in quiet as an extrovert, nerdy extrovert. So thanks for playing along as we just give everybody a little reprieve as we move through everything. So setting up our slides here for this team, and I'll invite Gavin to turn on his video and we will get started. Here's Gavin. All right, put a little spotlight on you and go ahead and start when you're ready.
Hello, like she said, I'm Gavin Fuchs. I'm really excited today to speak to you about how our company, Batech Recycling Solutions, is going to contribute to the transition to clean energy. Next slide, please. So, as many of us already probably know, lithium-ion batteries are in many of the stuff that we use every day. So from things like our phones and computers to electrical vehicles. They're currently made using unsustainable mining practices that will eventually exhaust Earth's precious metals, and lots of energy is spent processing and transporting these materials. Additionally, only about 5% of lithium-ion batteries are currently recycled, and the methods by which that is done are expensive, inefficient, and complicated. As demand for lithium-ion batteries continues to grow as they grow in popularity, it is essential that we come up with a way to recycle them that is both economical and environmentally friendly. Next slide, please. And our company aims to do just that, offer a new way to recycle lithium-ion batteries, namely the mechanochemical recovery of critical elements of spent lithium-ion batteries. Very briefly, it uses magnets to abstract the cobalt and chemical infiltration techniques to abstract the lithium from the cathodes of spent lithium-ion batteries. Next slide, please. So what makes our process better than what's already out there? Well, there's a few things. So first of all, it's sustainable and eco-friendly, so it doesn't require any massive inputs of energy, corrosive reagents, or produce any hazardous waste. It will also reduce supply chain disruptions by reducing the dependence on complicated global supply chains that are often associated with processing and transporting raw materials. It's also efficient and productive, meaning that it takes only about 3 steps, whereas the competitors take 5, and has higher yields of about 90% for cobalt and 70% for lithium. And finally, it is economic, so it's cheaper than current recycling processes, easily scalable, and will make recycling lithium-ion batteries cheaper than making them from natural materials. Next slide, please. So thinking about the sort of demand that exists for this product, it's important to note that the current lithium-ion battery market is valued at approximately $37 billion, so a pretty big market, and is actually expected to grow by about 16% in the next 5 years. The current global lithium-ion battery recycling market, however, is only valued at about $1.5 billion, representing a huge opportunity for businesses like ours. Thinking now about some of our potential customers, the most direct customer will be companies that recycle lithium-ion batteries. However, there's also a number of companies that will benefit indirectly from our process and business, those that use lithium-ion batteries. So things like electric vehicle manufacturers, technology companies, and original equipment manufacturers. And I mention these because although they aren't the direct customers, we believe that they represent a largely untapped market that we would like to access further along in this business. Next slide, please. So on the other hand, a few of our potential competitors are the raw materials producers, wholesalers, and processors who make these components, as well as companies also recycling lithium-ion batteries, whether it be by different processes or within different niches within the industry. It's important to note, however, that our process offers a value that theirs cannot. So besides just being sustainable, although I don't have specific figures for you, we are confident that our process will be cheaper because it does not require extensive initial physical or mechanical processing, which is the most important aspect of the other processes that currently exist. Our process is also more easily scalable, which means that our profits are going to increase as we recycle more and more. Next slide, please. Being that lithium-ion batteries themselves are already playing a huge role in the transition to clean energy, it's safe to say that this process and our business are going to have a large impact as well. in general, the industry as a whole will be less reliant on dangerous and unethical mining of elements. There will be less pollution and hazardous waste given into the environment. And across the industry, there will be increased efficiency and overall less energy and resource consumption across less complex supply chains. Our business will also contribute to a more equitable future by improving the health and reducing exploitation in the poor communities that are often the sources of the mining and processing plants that I mentioned. Next slide, please. So now that you understand a bit better why this process is so important, let me tell you how we actually plan to bring it to the market. So we are going to target other businesses, not the consumer directly, and we will focus only on lithium cobalt oxide lithium ion batteries in early phases. In our first phase, we will license the process to companies that are already recycling lithium ion batteries, making a percentage of their profit. And as we move into the future, we would like to access that sort of indirect customer base I was talking about before, contracting directly with EV and OEM manufacturers to provide them with the infrastructure and reverse logistics they need to recycle their own lithium ion batteries. This will be essential for creating a circular economy, which will have efficiency benefits across the board. Next slide, please. So thinking about a few quick next steps, we need to run pilot experiments, work with engineers to design any necessary equipment and refine our process, build relationships within the community, and finally partner with businesses, at which point we actually expect to begin making a profit. Your investment will be used to target the first 2 points on this graphic here, namely finalize our licensing agreement, purchase the materials that we need to conduct our pilot experiments, and develop any necessary equipment to refine and finalize our process. We hope that you are as excited about our company's role in the transition to clean energy as we are. I want to thank you so much for listening to my presentation today, and have a nice day.
Thanks, Gavin. Great job. I don't always think about that part of the system, but obviously a critical aspect of how we think about new technology, circular economy. So wonderful job with that presentation. All right, so again, just giving ourselves a moment to absorb all the things we just learned from Gavin. I'm going to invite Tyler to come in and get set up as our next spotlight speaker. There we go.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Tyler Grace. Our business idea here at K-State Aerospace Technology Campus for Greener Energy is to increase the efficiency of electrical vehicle takeoff and landing by providing resonant wireless power. Next slide, please. I will address the technology itself, what's currently on the market, price, and potential customer groups. Next slide, please. Upon takeoff and landing, the drone will be able to receive wireless power from the launching pad. This will increase the overall flight time by providing power to the drone for its takeoff and landing sequences. Next slide, please. This is our current IP identification provided by K-State Surf. Next slide, please. The current technical readiness level of this technology is level 3 with funding and support from K-State Inventor. The Inventor prototype can be developed to bring a technical readiness level up to 5 or 6. Next slide, please. Increasing the readiness and efficiency of a drone with wireless eVTOL can appeal to a wide range of end users, from hobbyists, corporations, government agencies, to military application. Because no wires are involved in charging the drone, the eVTOL station can be set up in a remote location where the otherwise human interaction would be difficult. This remote application could allow the observation of infrastructure that crosses great distances through a remote country where travel would be difficult for humans to reach. Next slide, please. This technology would aid in the need for green energy and noise-free aircraft as drones get more popular and more capable of performing more complicated tasks such as transportation of goods and people. The need for efficient takeoff and landing will increase, boosting the eVTOL market. Next slide, please. SkyCharge is a similar idea, but they're taking a different approach. Their technology requires electrical contacts. This creates a physical connection between the charge platform and the battery-powered device. Next slide, please. Wobotic is working on a wireless charging problem also. However, their application is geared towards ground-based vehicles such as warehouse automation robots and lunar rovers. Next slide, please. Our eVTOL scheme, our charging scheme for the eVTOL uses resonant wireless power transfer system. This gives the ability to keep applying electrical energy to the drone at greater distances than the Wobotic and the SkyCharge approach. By taking the electrical burden off of launching and landing off the battery, the drone will have increased flight duration per charge. By providing power through the landing pad, once landed, the electrical vehicle will be able to remain inactive and unattended for a lengthy period of time, but maintain its full charge and be mission ready at a moment's notice. Next slide, please. The anticipated cost for a 150-watt charger system could be under $500. However, there is a risk that there will be a rise in electrical components causing cost increase of the estimated price. Next slide, please. The impact of this item could add to the electrical vehicle market. This will translate to economic development, high-wage job growth, a reduction in CO2 emissions, increase in undergraduate research opportunities, and assist in teaching and research mission K-State. Next slide, please. Next steps for the eVTOL is to develop a working model and collect data on increased efficiency to the flight time and flight times of small drones. Next slide, please. Needed resources will be access to a Faraday cage and an electronic MET lab, continued support from K-State, knowledge of students and and faculty assistants. Next slide, please. This wireless resonant, the wireless resonant of the eVTOL has potential to affect the electrical vehicle market by approaching the problem in a unique way. This product could appeal to a broad range of customers. With funding and support, this project has the potential to increase efficiency of electrical vehicles. I want to thank you guys for letting me do this. Thank you.
Great, another wonderful presentation, another technology that I would probably have folks who don't think about on a daily basis. So this is really great to show the range. Something we talk about at Grid Catalyst as an accelerator all the time is we tend to think about these big categories of renewable energy and energy efficiency. And truly what makes our system work is millions of other innovations and inventions that improve either technology that already exists or is kind of a necessary widget to the rest of the technology. So just again, seeing the range of technologies presented here today with the students and perspectives on existing technology, I just find truly exciting and really reflective of what we're seeing and movement in a really dynamic energy system and innovation landscape these days. So it's a wonderful, wonderful job with that. I am going to move us on to our next presentation on air source heat pumps in cold climates. So if I could have Jacqueline come on video, and I'll put the spotlight on. Take it away.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jacqueline Martinez, and I'm part of the Climate Conditioning Co. Next slide, please. So what are air source heat pumps? Well, air source heat pumps are just both a heating and cooling system for your home. And in simple terms, they take in cold air from the outside during the summer to cool your home. And in the winter, it will absorb any hot air it can find in the outside environment to heat your home, all by using electricity. Next slide, please. So some problems we like to highlight is that other traditional heating and cooling systems use mostly non-renewable energy sources. People use natural gas to power their HVAC systems, and this is a problem because of the greenhouse gas emissions associated with natural gas, and people are immediately impacted because of the changing of gas prices. And air source heat pumps can provide a way for someone to lower their emissions with an efficient HVAC system. 67% of people are also unhappy with their heating system, and there are still lingering concerns about how air source heat pumps work in colder climates, which often stem from misconceptions and beliefs held from older heat pump models. Next slide, please. And to elaborate more on the efficiency of an air source heat pump, I want to refer to this chart. From this chart, which is showing the efficiency of an air source heat pump, you can see that the air source heat pump is very efficient in warmer temperatures. The y-axis, which is just the coefficient of performance, which is basically efficiency, often outperforms when compared to electric baseboard and propane furnace users. The air source heat pump can be 3 times more efficient than an electric baseboard. This would provide immediate savings in the long run for anybody who wants to switch. Next slide, please. Furthermore, many modern colder climate models can work in up to -13 Fahrenheit. Air source heat pumps are not only efficient, but their technology is advancing every year. It's only a matter of marketing and awareness for the consumer to see if the air source heat pump is right for them. And air source heat pumps are renowned for their comfort. And according to the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, 91% of single head survey takers with air source heat pumps were satisfied. Air source heat pumps continue to be improved for cooling through new variable speed compressors and new refrigerants for hotter temperatures. And with our cold climate models, people would feel comfortable using these technologies year round. And air source heat pump, as well as being like a mouthful, doesn't really cut it as a name. We found that a better way to market the air source heat pump could be to rename the device climate conditioner. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please, as well. Thank you. Our plan is to license our cold climate air source heat pump as climate conditioners to existing HVAC and equipment companies, which we'll call OEMs from now on. We would be able to tap into the existing infrastructure that these companies like Mitsubishi, Trane, or Carrier have. This wouldn't just benefit us, but this would add to sales for those companies in colder climates and diversify their product portfolios. And we plan to partner with utility partners because it's vital to be on their good side. These can be approving third parties and great sources of trust for homeowners and the end users. And we would profit off of royalties per unit and the consultations. And we would use that to direct increasing awareness of climate conditioners. Next slide, please. And we know we have the potential to better the HVAC game with better, cheaper options in the future, especially aiming towards selling in rural areas, areas without natural gas options and heavily polluted areas. We would also benefit our partners with a better seasonal energy efficiency ratio, which is known as SEER. This is important in colder climates because people want to know that their HVAC systems work in the winter, the summer, and any mishmash of season like states like Minnesota have. And our climate conditioner would reduce the residential impact on climate change by expediting the energy transition towards clean energy. Next slide, please. As for next steps, if we were to get the prize money, we would first like to create better marketing material, then begin searching for OEMs and utility partnerships, and then begin conducting cost, comfortability, efficiency studies, which would guide our metric of success. Next slide, please. And elaborating on this, we aim to increase the promotion of air source heat pumps because it's especially important to start with early adopters. You can tap into the enormous market of home improvement, which according to the US Bureau from 2017 to 19 was about $522 billion. Early adopters would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and they would save money with the climate conditioner's efficiency in the long run. People who are willing to spend for improvement can bet on the climate conditioner to help minimize climate change impact, and followers would see these savings and follow suit. We could also take on more ambitious projects in the future with new homes and developers, creating community homes that use climate conditioners but have a community backup HVAC system. Not only would this minimize climate change, but create a pathway for innovation and perhaps change how we think of heating and cooling systems within communities. Next slide, please. And this all stems from the initial investment made by consumers. These home improvement consumers would have to be ready to pay upwards to 80% more than a traditional HVAC system that would break even in 8 years, and last, on average, double that of a traditional HVAC system. This only can be done by spreading awareness to consumers and letting them make decisions by understanding what the climate conditioner is and letting them be the judge to improve their comfortability in their home, and helping those, and then next steps would be helping those who want the HVAC system, their dream, find rebates and overall understand the financial incentives they should expect. And from there, we can increase the already large market and supply chain and that air source heat pumps have, and expect the price to install and own air source cold climate air source heat pump to decrease with mainstream adoption. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you for considering Climate Conditioning Go.
Thank you, nice job. I have the feeling that that new name might be all over Twitter before we know it, given how much that has been a conversation out on Energy Twitter. So another great presentation on a topic that has been particularly of interest in the energy world lately. All right, we have just 2 presentations left, and to set expectations for folks, recognizing we've got several parts of today's session. We've got 2 more student presentations. When those presentations wrap up, I will be offering a little bit more information about Grid Catalyst, our accelerator program, when the student presentations are done, so folks can stay for that if they're interested. And then we will have our presentation from 75F's co-founder at 4 o'clock. So just to reset the agenda for folks who are maybe joining us a little late. And of course, always just stalling for my judges to take a breather, maybe even get a drink of water before we go on to the next presentation. So we're gonna have Isaac come in to talk about mobile microgrids next, which is another super interesting topic. Just give me a moment to get up your slides, Isaac, and then you can get started.
Yeah, and could we actually start on the second slide, please?
I think we can.
Sounds great.
And when I hit the share, Isaac, just let me know that I'm on the right slide for you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, that that's correct. Yes.
Okay, great. All right, timer's on. Go for it.
Yeah. My name's Isaac Tweetball, and I'm from Iowa State University. The pictures you see now are of my house back in 2020 after an inland hurricane struck Iowa. Every member of our group was without electricity for 4 or more days, and the devastation took months to clean up. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can see some of the grain bins that were hit by the 100-mile-an-hour plus winds that went through all of Iowa. Over 500,000 people lost electricity, some for a few days, or in the case of my family, for slightly over 2 weeks. The Iowa National Guard brought in diesel generators to supply insulin and other essential supplies to those that needed it. But after 36 hours of continuous operation, some of the diesel generators started to fail. Next slide, please. The solar-powered mobile microgrid can change the way we respond to natural disasters and off-grid energy generation. Next slide, please. Here we see the mobile microgrid during the same event. It was used to charge cars and to prepare meals, providing essential power to the community in a time of need. The Iowa National Guard has since become interested in this technology, seeing it as reliable and can use diesel generators working with solar to create electricity when needed in natural disasters. Next slide, please. And this schematic shows how the mobile microgrid is pieced together. The energy harvested from the solar panels flows into a string inverter where it's converted from a direct current to an alternating current. The energy can directly satisfy the load that is connected to the microgrid, and whatever electricity is not being used can flow into the batteries. However, if a load is connected that the solar alone cannot satisfy, the diesel generator or the batteries can output electricity when required. Next slide, please. All of this can be packaged within a 20-foot shipping container for transportation when needed. The assembly of the microgrid takes 2 to 4 people and can be set up and assembled within 2 to 3 hours. The crate is secured to the ground with large anchoring screws as seen in the middle, and after initial setup, minimal maintenance is required beyond filling up the generator as needed, and it can all be monitored from an app. Next slide, please. The microgrid has multiple use case scenarios. As mentioned earlier, the National Guard is interested in the microgrid to aid natural disaster relief. The technology could also be used for cell towers as backup energy, and if the price of on-grid energy continues to rise and the price of batteries and solar continues to fall, the mobile microgrid could be used as a backup generation for manufacturers and retailers who can lose thousands of dollars due to short-term outages. The town you see below is Deering, Alaska, a community that depended on importing diesel to provide power. However, back in 2020, a company called Box Power that creates mobile microgrid solutions similar to ours created a mobile microgrid system in their community. Because of this, they have seen the energy prices drop over the past few years. On the right, you see the picture of the mobile microgrid connected to the water purification system developed by BES Water Solutions. Working with BES, the mobile microgrid has helped to cut down on the amount of propane that they consume. We believe that these examples help demonstrate the practicality of our solution. Next slide, please. There is competition in the sector. Companies like Box Power have created similar products to Iowa State's mobile microgrid, but have proven that products such as ours are viable in the marketplace. We have the advantage over our competitors with the addition of the diesel generator connected and with the ability to connect other forms of energy generation to the microgrid, such as natural gas generators. Because of this, we believe that our product is superior to theirs. Diesel generators are also competitive against us, but as the price of diesel continues to rise and the price of solar and batteries continue to decline, diesel generator companies will begin to feel the pressure as we outcompete their price points. Next slide, please. Seen on this chart is the projected cost of parts and labor over the next 10 years. The chart depicts the cost dependent on different battery price levels. We are expecting battery prices to gradually decrease as the technology advances, and our optimistic base unit price in 2023 is $92,000. Within 5 years, we could also expect that number to drop 13% based off battery price reduction alone. We could also expect solar prices to decrease as well as labor costs to decrease as we scale up. Next slide, please. Here we can observe the projected profit over the next 10 years. This chart takes into account the pricing of the microgrid, projected costs, and projected sales. For year one, our goal would be to sell at least 5 units for a total cost of $90,000. Adoption of a new technology will take some time for customers to see the benefits of our mobile microgrid, so we plan on taking a slight loss over the first 3 years in order to make the microgrid more attractive to consumers. After that, we hope that the market would expand and allow us to produce more units at a cheaper cost, while also slightly raising the price point in order to create a larger margin of profit. Next slide, please. We believe that the future of mobile microgrids is bright. One field that could be further explored with the mobile microgrid is increasing energy generation on the microgrids by adding other technologies besides diesel and solar. One of the disadvantages of the microgrid is a decrease in power production at night, which could be resolved by adding other energy generation methods. Custom parts could also be made for the microgrid that would allow for more efficiencies in the system and make us less dependent on third parties such as Tesla. Expanding relations with companies such as QCell or Enphase that supply electronics used in the microgrid would also help us reduce the cost per microgrid and help us in the long term. We also hope that this will reduce the impact and recovery costs of natural disasters by eliminating the need for to transport liquid fuel and backup generators. The smaller batteries on the microgrid could also be transported to families who cannot leave their homes. Additionally, the microgrid would reduce the carbon footprint of off-grid power generation, and by working with companies such as BES, it is actively keeping nitrogen out of our oceans. Additionally, the hope is to be able to link microgrids together for situations where one cannot produce enough energy. Overall, we believe that the microgrid is a revolutionary technology. It beats its traditional competitors in the sector in terms of price, and by investing in our technology, you'd be investing in the future of readily available clean energy. Thank you.
Great job, Isaac. It's amazing to see the photos from that time. You know, many of us in the Midwest have been paying a lot of attention when those huge storms come through, and to recognize there's a good opportunity for making the situation better is incredibly thoughtful and technical, and I'm glad to see that under development. All right, we are coming up on our last presentation here from NOAA, representing our North Dakota, one of our North Dakota teams here, talking to us about dual mode solar thermal collectors. And Noah, just give me a moment, make sure your slides are set up and get you a spotlight, and we'll get going in just a moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina. Hello, my name is Noah Schmidt. I'm representing the team from NDSU, and our proposed technology is a dual function solar thermal collector. Next slide, please. So as you heard before, residential and commercial buildings in the US account for about 40% of the energy consumed here. And as you can see in the pie chart at the bottom right, currently only about 12% of energy consumption in the US is sourced from renewables such as solar. And of all the solar energy produced, 95% of it is solar electric coming from photovoltaic panels. So there's a lot of room to improve. Current predictions from the Department of Energy say that we will be obtaining 76% of our energy from fossil fuels in the year 2050. And if we want to meet our carbon emission reduction goals, we need a drastic change in trajectory. And the only way to do that is by utilizing renewables, such as solar thermal panels. Next slide, please. So as you can see in the right graphic, most solar thermal installations in North America use an unglazed collector. And I'll show the different kinds of collectors later. In the US in 2016, the market was valued at $777 million and is expected to grow to $1.6 billion in the next 7 years. Looking globally, the market is also growing at a compound annual growth rate of about 6.7% between 2020 and 2026. And it is expected to generate about $2.87 billion in revenue at the end of 2026. So there is definitely a market for solar thermal collectors. Next slide, please. So here's the current technology that's being used. On the left side is a unglazed solar collector, which is the most common solar thermal collector in the United States. These systems are used almost exclusively for swimming pool heating. The right side is a diagram of a glazed solar thermal collector. And glazed collectors are similar, but they have a glass cover, which makes them more efficient, but also heavier and more expensive than unglazed systems. Both glazed and unglazed systems use an absorber plate to absorb solar energy, which is transferred through pipes into water. Next slide, please. Which brings us to our solution. Instead of an absorber plate and pipes, our solution only uses 2 plastic panels separated by plastic strips, between which the fluid flows. Our solution also utilizes a graphene-based nanofluid. Graphene has about 7,000 times the thermal conductivity of water, so having a fluid with even a small graphene content, such as 0.1 to 0.5%, would drastically improve the performance of the collector. Lab experiments showed an increase from 13% thermal energy absorption when using only water to 80% when using a graphene-based nanofluid. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Our solution is also a dual function. The figure on the left illustrates collecting solar energy during the day, which is something not unique to our solution. But what is unique is shown on the right figure, cold collection. At night, the fluid can be pumped through the same panels to reject heat to the atmosphere. This dual function is made possible using 2 fluid storage tanks. Next slide, please. And here you can see a diagram of the 2 tanks connected to the solar panel array. By utilizing 2 separate fluid storage tanks, we can store hot fluid for heating purposes and cold fluid for cooling purposes, such as air conditioning. The energy stored in these tanks can be recharged at different points throughout the day. Next slide, please. And this is how our solution stacks up against glazed and unglazed collectors. Ours is lighter, making it easier to transport and install than a glazed collector, but it still retains the high efficiency of glazed collectors. But they're also almost as inexpensive as unglazed systems. And it's important to note that our solution is also dual purpose, being able to be used for heating and cooling purposes, making it the ideal solution for building developers, HVAC designers, and building owners. Next slide, please. So there's definitely a market for solar thermal collectors. It's expected to double in size in the next 7 years. And the US has set carbon emission reduction goals that solar thermal energy can help us to achieve. Our technology is also better than the competition, so what are the next steps? Next slide, please. Our business plan is to work with current solar thermal collector manufacturers to bring a product to market, with our target customer being HVAC and building designers, as well as building owners. First, we need to create a working prototype in the lab. Researchers at NDSU have demonstrated the technology, so now we just need to make a working prototype. After that, we should collaborate with solar thermal collector manufacturers such as Solar East, Bosch, HDP, or AET to fully develop the product and obtain any necessary certifications. After that, the product is essentially complete and we need only manufacture the product and bring it to market, again, targeting HVAC designers, commercial and residential building developers, and building owners. Ultimately, our product is less expensive, more efficient, and easier to install than the competition. The US has set carbon emission reduction goals, and the only way to do this, to reach those goals, is by using renewables. Next slide, please. And I would just like to thank all the judges for giving us a chance to present today. Thank you.
Great job, Noah. All right. So that brings us to the end of our student presentations. I am just incredibly impressed with the work here. For those who didn't have line of sight to the EnergyTech University Prize development, the call for competitors went out towards the end of last year. And so some of these students have been working on this for just a couple of months, even if they've been working on the technology for longer. They've only been working on the presentations for a short time. So I'm just really want to, I wish there was a vocal audience here so you could hear the round of applause. But I just really want to tip my hat to the students. Also want to recognize that it is a tough thing to be the presenter when you are representing a group. And so for the students who are in the groups and maybe aren't getting the applause in the chat here today, I want to just recognize that there were dozens of students involved in these presentations today and acknowledge the work and creativity you all brought into developing these presentations. Just a really tremendous job from everyone. And I think it's been such an exciting process. As we've mentioned, it's the first time that the Department of Energy has done this contest, but if the other regions are doing anywhere near as well as the Northern Plains, I think there's just a lot of really impressive work here that should inspire them to want to do another round of this next year. So, and maybe we'll see some of these students again who are not graduating or stay into graduate programs. So with that, I'm going to transition us out of this segment of the program. Students, if you want to stay on as presenters, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can go back out and use the registration links in your emails to come back in. If you'd like to take a little bit of the pressure off the presentation part, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to just share a little bit more about Grid Catalyst because we have some extra time here before our speaker, but then I'm going to give us a 5-minute break because I'm guessing our judges are going to need just a little bit of extra time. And also I'll just note, Ben and Pat and Anna, if you want to shift over to the judging session and get started earlier, sounds like that's a plan for you all. So you can go ahead and make your exit. If folks are trying to balance a really long segment of time today and you need to step out, I really encourage you to come back at 4 o'clock for the presentation from Deepinder. I just can't say enough about what an incredible speaker he is, what an incredible inspiration he is as a technical founder. One of the really amazing success stories from here in Minnesota, and just to see his company poised for global success is just really incredible. And so that will start exactly at 4 o'clock. And then at the end of his presentation is when we will announce the winners. Our judges will reconvene with us and come back in. So with that, I'm just going to pull up some slides. And for those who are wondering, who is Grid Catalyst? What is Grid Catalyst? Why is Nina Axelson running this show today? Try and answer some of those questions. Since this is not the student presentation, if you have questions, especially if the students are still listening and you are wondering about, you know, what is an accelerator and how does this all work? Feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to provide more information. So with that, I'm just going to pull up some slides here. You'd think I'd be getting faster at it this far into the session, but turns out I'm not gaining speed. All right. So as I mentioned at the beginning of our session, and for some of our latecomers, I'm Nina Axelson. I'm the founder of Grid Catalyst. It is a clean energy accelerator launched in 2021. Our mission is to create equitable pathways for entrepreneurs and technologies to solve northern climate challenges. Really what's at the heart of this is I believe deeply in the potential of innovation and innovators. And I worked 13 years in the energy industry for a really amazing company here in Minnesota, Evergreen Energy. And a few years before that, both working in environmental, social, and governance positions in various corporations. And one of the things I just really saw is what is possible when we give people a pathway to success, when we believe in their ideas, the way we can believe in these incredible students that we've had presenting today. But I've also seen the really hard part of commercializing technology. And that is really difficult when we look at really difficult when we look at how are we going to solve all these things. So all these students just presented all these amazing ideas, and they take so many steps. You have to come up with the idea. You have to find people who are willing to invest in your development of the idea. Sometimes you need a laboratory, and then the funding, which is why Pat Dillon and the SBIR programming is so important to get research and get through a research development phase. And sometimes people will put 10 years of work into something, and they're so ready to come in and solve problems in the marketplace. And it takes someone saying yes to a demonstration project to make that happen. And in the energy industry, that can be one of the most difficult challenges, because the risks associated with energy are perceived to be really high. sometimes they really are high. We're talking about the management of national grids and people who depend on energy for life, health, safety. So when we were looking at how can we solve for some of that problem, one of the things we really wanted to do is make demonstration projects an easier step in the development for innovators. So I was really lucky to be partnered with Clean Energy Economy Minnesota. If you're not familiar with their work, I highly encourage you to check it out. They are a driving force behind the clean energy business advocacy and promotion and advancement here in Minnesota, on our way to creating 100,000 clean energy jobs by 2030. So a really incredible organization. So for those who do work in Minnesota and the Midwest, we're doing a lot of things really well as far as creating places for innovators to get technology to marketplace. But it was really important to us that we make those small changes that can make a big difference in getting technology to move forward. So to give a little bit of the national perspective here, this is a bit of an older map, which some folks will recognize if they're in this space, because Clean Energy Trust is now Evergreen Climate Innovations, and Oregon Best is now Virtue Labs. And there are other, like M-Hub in Chicago is not noted on here, and there are some other programs. But you can see, and I think this is important when we think about our Northern Plains category here for today's event, we don't have as much of that presence up in the upper Midwest. And I laughed because it was so cold out today, and I walked out of the house without a coat, as a Minnesotan does on a 4-degree day, and thought, no, I guess it's still cold yet. We're not quite done with winter. And that's really important when we think about commercializing technology and making sure that we have pathways for solving problems that are specific to areas that are as cold as we are. At the same time, we want to make sure that we're not only solving cold climate problems, but we're taking more traditional technologies and making sure they can work in our climate. And so that we're not waiting an extra 5 or 10 years to adapt a technology that's market ready for our climate zone. So I think there's a lot that's important about the geography, the climate, and representation here in the Midwest. So if we think about strengthening our ecosystem, and I know there are folks participating today, including Ben and Pat out of our judging, there's a lot of really amazing things happening in Minnesota. Launch Minnesota has been doing so much as part of the state's Department of Employment and Economic Development, but with a focus on startups to provide innovation grants and support and training to all sorts of startups and innovators coming up in Minnesota. We've got a Forge North and a really widespread entrepreneurial support organizations out there helping startups. And we've got great investment community as well. What was missing for us was, where was the energy focus? Because the needs of energy innovators can be very different. And for those of you who are energy innovators, it's to make sure that, where do you find your peer group? And sometimes that's going to be in your school, and sometimes that's going to be in your job, but finding other folks who can challenge you and support you and understand the challenges that are specific to the pathway of an energy innovator. So with looking at this ecosystem, there were 3 areas that we really wanted to be impactful. One is creating our innovators network and creating a demonstration accelerator. It's really important to us that as we think about system transformation, we think about who has access to the opportunities within system transformation, and that we don't do enough to make sure diverse founders have the resources they need and the opportunities they deserve to show off their talent and capabilities. And something that I've always dreamed of is creating space for exactly the kind of exchange and access to resources that can make our region really strong. And that's really connecting not just clean energy innovators, but all of these other support functions that we know exist in Minnesota's public and private sector. So we're really lucky that we have drawn the support of a really strong innovators network. These are utilities and businesses within Minnesota, and just again, recognizing that we're Minnesota based for now, that raised their hand when we said we need folks to take risks with us as demonstration partners. And these are all organizations that stepped up to say, we can either help you facilitate getting a demonstration project to happen, or we could host a demonstration project. So they entered into non-binding agreements with us just to say they would take a look at startups and see if they could find a partnership and an opportunity. Nobody was obligated to work with any of the startups coming through our accelerator program, but knowing that there was this kind of commitment from some of the really major institutions in Minnesota not only helps us attract more startups to the table, but I think really shows a commitment to doing this work as a collective, which is really important. So the kind of technologies we've been looking for, we are looking at what is important to our region, what is important to our climate, where are the market opportunities that you heard some of the students speak to today. So, building electrification is such an incredibly big category right now as we look at decarbonization. And back to my point earlier of, we don't always think about these tiny components that actually can make a really big difference in the way that building energy is more dynamic, and there's more capabilities of programming and controls within these systems. And I think that's just going to continue to be a big category. Heat pumps, can fit into that category. Renewable thermal, where we would, we heard 2 geothermal presentations today, but also could be other aspects of renewable gas, or solar thermal, which has always been a favorite category of mine. We are looking mostly at small scale batteries, partially just because the utility scale battery types of demonstrations are usually a little bit more significantly funded by our national labs and partners. And within controls and metering, as I mentioned, the more that we can be dynamic in the way energy exchange happens within users and buildings and utilities, the better our systems are going to get. And then, of course, really can't have an energy conversation without we're talking about what the transformation of the grid is going to be. So we set out to find technologies within these categories because our partners also said they were interested in these categories. But we've also had lots of interesting startups come forward that are outside of these categories, but still are doing a lot for our energy transformation and have high market value. Within our Equity and Access program, I just want to make sure that I acknowledge an incredible partnership with the Center for Economic Inclusion. They do so much to address the wealth gap in our region and set up the talent in our region to have great success, and the organizations to recognize how to have the conversations we need to have about diversity and equity and inclusion, but also to look at having a stronger economy because we're bringing the best minds and best talent into the best positions that they can have in these organizations. So for us, that's in looking at what do we put into place for our systems to make sure that diverse founders are finding their way to a career pathway that involves technology, science, climate, that they have access to funding and resources and support to develop those ideas, recognizing there are incredibly systemic issues with particularly women and people of color who are trying to enter into these categories and don't have as much access to capital, have a huge history of being less represented in science and technology. So I think there's just huge opportunity here that we want to make sure we're addressing with our program. And then I'll lastly talk about just our Energy Innovation Hub. So I'm really hopeful that the folks participating today, whether or not you're from Minnesota, think about how can we connect going forward. I think there's just so many more opportunities for us to collaborate, to work on projects together. I'm hoping that some of the students heard something today that they think, well, man, maybe I can reach out to that lab or that department and work on something together. And that collectively we start working towards making sure these things are actually getting into the marketplace to solve problems. And the last thing I'll say about that is I have found very frequently that there are actually way more resources out there than folks realize. I think the Department of Energy is going to continue to show us lots of opportunities and bring a lot of resources to the table, but navigating them is really difficult. And I'm, again, feel so fortunate that in Minnesota, there are lots of platforms and programs, but we need to make sure that entrepreneurs and innovators connect to those programs and are able to connect to those resources. And that's something that we really want to make an easier process. So that is more about Grid Catalyst. And of course I have my slides up and I didn't see our keynote come in, and now I'm really excited. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. So I'm actually going to pause the webinar for just in our recording for a few minutes, and I'm going to get Deepinder all set up for our presentation. So if folks want to stay, you can. Otherwise, just make sure you're back here in about 5 minutes and we'll get going with our keynote presentation. Whoop. All right. With that, we're very excited to introduce, just an incredible success story. I think Deepinder already knows what a huge fan I am, and if you haven't already heard from him, you're going to leave a huge fan yourselves today. We just thought he would be a perfect presenter when we've got all these students who are considering what are the energy solutions and innovations we're going to need for the next generation of our energy grid, for our marketplace, to solve problems in our daily lives. And I feel like that's exactly what has happened with 75F. It represents that intersection of so many things. And to hear from someone who's had to work really hard, so being brilliant, but also has to have the hustle when you're a founder to bring that work forward. So that's not his official bio, but that's just my perspective on it. So with that, I'll read our actual bio here with Deepinder co-founded 75F after having designed some of the world's fastest core networks for tier 1 service providers like AT&T, NTT, and Verizon. He has almost 25 years of experience in electronics and computing. He's brought a wealth of embedded products to the market. His key goal in every endeavor is to simplify operational complexity and make products intuitive. That is such a wonderful way to say it. 75F does just that. As the only IoT native or continuously commissioning building management system on the market today, 75F is making commercial building browser ready in a traditionally manual and complex industry. 75F has won support from some of the biggest names in energy and technology, including Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy and Steve Case's Rise of the Rest. Even with that big bio, I still think it's just, trying to sum you up in a paragraph is impossible, which is why we invited you to speak today. With that, I'm going to stop talking and hand over the mic here so you can hear from the real deal.
Thank you so much for having me here. And all the folks who presented, thank you for being involved in this industry. We really, really need this. And I just want to make sure I'll cover some of the reasons on why this is super important. So the work that you guys are doing is absolute, and gals, is exceptionally important, a huge contributor. So a little bit of background on Deep, as Nina said, I think I'm a network geek, right? So my background, my claim to fame is I had one of the world's first terabit routers sitting in my garage for over 5 years. However, when my daughter was 1, we moved her into her own bedroom, but she would wake up in the middle of the night crying, and I found it's because the temperature in her room was dropping about 10 degrees at night. So the thermostat was in the master bedroom, we were nice and comfortable, but the rest of the house was freezing. So as a self-respecting engineer, I quit my job to fix the damn problem, which is why we're talking today. Right. But in the background, I think the key thing is I've always been involved in startups. This is the 6th startup that I've been a part of. The previous one we actually sold to BroadSoft, which is now Cisco. So I really wanted to get involved with something where we could have a little bit of an impact. But as I started, as I mentioned, I've always been in startups, which have typically the life cycle of a startup is somewhere between 3 to 5 years. You either go boom, you get sold, or you actually go bust by that time. But when I embarked on this personal journey of mine, I came across this very interesting fact, right? That our buildings are literally killing the planet. And commercial buildings are the 4th largest emitter of greenhouse gases worldwide. And this is an important piece. I think some of you might actually recognize these slides since you're involved in the clean tech arena. This is an interesting thing that really brings me, ties all of this together. And this is the global levelized temperatures over the last 150 years. So we can see very clearly in this graphic that global warming itself is occurring, right? So that fact is pretty indisputable. What's kind of interesting is if we overlay over the same 150 years, the amount of CO2 that we've actually been pumping into the atmosphere, right? So you can see that that is going up logarithmically. And a lot of people will actually come back and say, hey, this might be a correlation and not causation, but well, it's a very, very strong correlation, right? So I really believe that the GHG and is directly linked to the rise in global worldwide temperatures that we have. And that's a very important piece to keep in mind, especially over since the last 20 years, we've really seen a huge amount of focus on renewables. We've seen prices of wind, we've seen prices of solar come down very, very significantly. But here's the interesting thing. Even with all of these factors, if you actually look at the amount of CO2 which is being dumped into the atmosphere, that is still growing asymptotically, right? So we continue to increase that CO2 emission. We have not actually yet brought it down so far. So the question really becomes, like, what's going to save the world? I'm a technology geek, so to me, the answer really lies in these slides. So this is the number of calculations you can do in a single second for a single dollar. Back in the 1900s, when you actually had a mechanical calculator, right in the early part of the graph, what you're seeing over here is that you would only do 1/1000th of a calculation if you spend a single dollar, right, in 1 second. If we fast forward to where we are now, we can do 1 billion calculations for every single dollar that we spend in a single second. And this looks like a pretty linear graph, except if you look at the axis, which is logarithmic. So if you were to map this on a linear graph, this is what it would actually look like. You can see that, to me, this is the only graph that I know of, the only curve that I know that actually matches the CO2 emission which is going on in the world. So somewhere, and my belief is that we actually have to somehow harness silicon and apply that to the problem that we have at hand, which is really the GHG emissions. And so what 75F does is uses smart sensors and computes to make commercial buildings more efficient and comfortable than ever before. And this is an interesting piece that even now with the price of renewable and solar coming down so dramatically, it is still about 6 times more efficient and cheaper to actually save energy than it is to actually generate energy, right? So a megawatt, or the amount of energy which is saved, is 1/6 the cost of any renewables resource that we have so far. And part of it is that whenever we use renewables, there's a huge amount of embodied cost in actually manufacturing that product itself. Whether it's going to be electric cars, there's a huge amount of lithium that needs to be mined for that, right? If you're doing solar panels, there's a huge amount of silicon which is used for that. So energy efficiency pays far more greater dividends than actually generating energy at this point. Right? When I embarked on this journey, one of the buildings that I came across was this Edge. At that point, it was the most advanced building in the world. Had about 40,000 sensors that cater to the indoor air quality, the temperature, the lighting, all the pieces that make a building intelligent for the occupants inside the building. But there was a dirty dark secret. Just the building controls, that's the amount of technology required to tie all of these pieces together, cost about $50 million. It's a kind of loose change that most people really don't have lying around, right? And the primary reason for that is, like, ever since the late 90s, we've had this concept of what's called direct digital controls, building controls, right? We can do a lot of things with them. They're very, very flexible. In fact, they're kind of like Lego blocks. But you need this Lego master to come in and make a bespoke solution for each and every job, right? And that makes it very, very expensive and cumbersome. So I come from the computing industry. To me, this is kind of like the computing industry was back in the 70s. Back then, you bought an Apple I, you brought it home, you sorted it together, and then you solved your own programming. You learned your own programming language like BASIC, and then you solve your own problems, kind of like the Flintstones, right? Today, you want to walk into a mall, you want to buy an iPhone, and you want to be productive in 3 minutes. If it ever takes you 5, you're probably screaming bloody murder. But in the controls industry, it's still very common for people to go in, take different products from different manufacturers, and then bring them together for a bespoke solution for each and every job. And this looks like a pretty old picture, except it was taken last year. And to me, that is the opportunity to disrupt. Right? So what we did is we created a complete, what's called an IoT-based building management solution that is completely vertically integrated and includes all the pieces that are really required to scale building intelligence. Right? So that all the pieces that we had in the edge, we have actually put, but they work out of the box. Right? The key thing that we can do is we can harness that compute power that I was talking about, which is abundant and cheap right now. So we get millions of data points which come in, which combined with the weather forecasts and what's happening and the occupancy inside the building and the sensor readings, we can actually make a model which can actually make the building more efficient and more comfortable. Right, so what ends up happening is the building occupants inside feel temperatures which are far more even, they have better indoor air quality, but at the same time, it's almost about 80% faster, cheaper to install because it's wireless, you can retrofit relatively quickly, and it's about 10x faster to install because all of the programming is done beforehand. So when you go and put it in on the site, you really don't have to go and muck around with doing that custom controls and doing these configuration pieces and doing programming on site. So far more efficient, way faster to put in. But the most important piece is that we end up getting a huge amount of energy savings. So typically between 30 to 50% in energy savings for the equipment we end up controlling. Huge amount of studies that have been done around 75F. We recently did a project with the National Renewable Energies Lab where they looked at the efficacy of our system across 850 climatic zones and 16 different building types. And the results are pretty consistent, somewhere between 30 to 50% in energy efficiency. And then we wrap it all together so that the building managers can have a complete overview of what's going on in the entire portfolio. So as I said, on average, we saved about 42% energy savings for the buildings we controlled in 2019. And if you were to scale that across just the US as an example, it would be the equivalent of taking off over about 70 million cars off the road or shutting down 90 coal-fired plants each year. So in GHG impact, it basically is around what's called 330 million tons of CO2 is what we could save. If you were to scale that on a global level, we would end up saving about 1.3 gigatons, which at this point is about 3% of the overall CO2 emission which is being pumped into the atmosphere. We're currently doing about 50 gigatons is what the world is spewing out currently. So this could actually end up saving about 1.3 gigatons out of that. Right? So we've had a huge amount of industry recognition. This time as well, we got recognized as one of the top 100 clean tech companies in the world, so which is a huge honor. We've had that for a couple of years, been recognized by other folks like Google, Frost & Sullivan, so forth. But from my perspective, where I saw the key validation that we have is in the huge marquee customer list that we have. Right? So we have people like WeWork who use us as the default, a huge number of other in Asia Pac. We have other marquee names over here who rely on 75F to help out with their sustainability goals. And then, as Nina mentioned, we're very fortunate to be backed by some of the biggest names in climate change. So Breakthrough Energy Ventures, founded by Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. CI is the world's largest climate-focused fund. And then we recently got an investment from Siemens. They're one of the world's largest building controls manufacturers. And 2 weeks ago, we took a very bold step. We actually announced, based on the energy efficiency that we have the world's most advanced IoT-based building management solution. That's a bold claim coming from what was really a startup, perhaps only 7 or 8 years ago. Right? At one point, I was in your shoes, sitting on the other side, listening to some of my first presentations. I mentioned I've been involved in multiple startups over my life, but I've always been the tech guy. Right? This was the first time I actually ended up being the CEO, just because the people that I would normally get involved with who would normally be the CEO were busy doing other things. Right? So I think it was not until 2014 I participated in the Minnesota Cup, and I actually had went through some of the mentoring classes to actually go through and figure out how to write a business plan, so on and so forth. And it wasn't until about 2015 that I attended my first class on what is sales. Right? Till then I thought it was voodoo stuff. So it was kind of interesting as part of my journey. I consider that I've come on the dark side, but I think it's really overall to the benefit of what needed to be done. So back to this point, we talked about, like, we've made this claim that we're going to be the world's most advanced building IoT system. I did want to leave with about 2 or 3 different, from my journey, some things which I just want all of you to consider and learn from. So from my perspective, where I sit, I think there's a little bit of a distinction that I make between innovation and disruption. Innovation is doing the same thing, but doing it a little bit better, right? So that would be incrementally better. Intermediately, some people actually confuse disruption with doing new things. True disruption in my world is doing new things that make old things obsolete. And that is an important piece, that if you're truly trying to disrupt something, just keep in mind where you are on the continuum, and that means at some point you're going to make the older pieces completely obsolete. So that old way of doing things is not going to work anymore. Right? So part of that is, just as an example, if you look at this whole piece on how cell phones were evolving, you can see that there's been small incremental changes going on over time. Right? So each model looked incrementally better than the other. Except when you actually have something like the iPhone, which looks fundamentally different than what we had before. It looks nothing like the technology inside, looks nothing like what we had when we were in the cell phone world. Right? So one of the key things is that disruption is never one feature. So it's an amalgamation. It's completely disrupting all the things that we knew up till that point. It's included a bunch of other technologies, specifically enhancements in computing in terms of like the screen size, in terms of the functionality, in terms of having browsers, and so many other pieces like the App Store, which are included. So it's no longer just a phone, right? So disruption is never just one feature. The second thing I was talking about is that it actually makes obsolete the old way of doing stuff. So here's a very interesting example. I'm a huge car guy, geek, right? This is the engine from a BMW racing car. So this is a V10, and it has about 5,000 moving components inside it. Very complex, huge amount of effort over years, over centuries, as we have refined how to actually manufacture internal combustion engine. So you can see the huge amount of machining which is done for all the intricate pipes for oils, etc., which are actually part of this engine. Now what happens is that you end up coming with an electric car motor, and that is grossly simplified, far lesser number of parts over there, and ends up producing more power and is more efficient than the system that it is replacing. So this all gets replaced with this. One of the big things is that when I said it disrupts the old way of doing things, because of the fact that electric motors require no maintenance, what that means is that all the service shops are no longer really required. There's a huge swath of technicians who are no longer going to be required, just because the motors themselves require very little maintenance. Haven't had an oil change in my Tesla. I've done about 60,000 miles, and it is just one of those reasons that, I mean, we have to just be cognizant that disruption moves an entire industry, right? And so the existing skills and processes are no longer relevant. So that's true disruption. Much of this, in fact, has been documented very well in a book that I would recommend to folks if you want to take a look at it, which is called The Innovator's Dilemma. Right? It talks about, if you're going to be coming in as a disruptor, if you're coming in as a startup, like what are the issues which are facing an incumbent, and how can a new company come over and dislodge an incumbent? Right? So if you think about the needs of a customer over time, they slowly advance. An incumbent will come in and produce a solution, and that solution ultimately will be so complex that it is, because they try to serve a large number of their customers, it will be so complex that it is overly complex for most of the customers. So even if you look at the evolution of the iPhone, which started off very simply, if you go to the settings and you look at the iPhone itself, it is hugely complex at this point. So ultimately, it was really meant that even people, grandmas, could end up using it. That is not the case. You actually have to read the manuals now if you really want to get something done. So we have already come in, and the incumbent technologies like Android and iPhone are so complex that people are now making phones which are simpler versions of an iPhone and an Android phone. Right? So when new entrants come in, typically what they do is they introduce a product which has got less features, but it actually caters to a small niche segment of society, right? But they can innovate faster, and eventually, as long as they can meet the minimum needs of the customer, they will actually have a customer adoption cycle. So that is one of the key things to know that Innovator's Dilemma covers in terms of what's called a technology S-curve, and how the things you can make life or your product be relevant across multiple generations. Right. And the reason I brought this up is because like at 75F, we are probably at our third generation of a product. Internally, we've done lots of smaller tweaks, but third major generation, because we believe that if we don't come over and disrupt ourselves, somebody else is going to come over and do that to us. So as you mature, as you become more successful, just keep that in mind, that you have to continue to keep on innovating all the time. And one of the prime examples for this is like that innovation has a shelf life. If you think of innovation, the key thing that we think about innovation is always this idea was this light bulb, except this light bulb no longer actually exists in real life. It's been replaced by a LED bulb, so you can't actually go and buy an incandescent bulb anymore, right? So the very concept notion of having that has actually been replaced. So just something to keep in mind, that innovation has a shelf life. And then a couple of other pieces that I want you guys to think about is this concept of like, why are you doing it? How are you doing it? And what are you doing, right? So this is called the golden circle, right? So what's the purpose, what's the mission, and what's the product? So at example, at 75F, why are we doing this? To make people more productive while saving the environment. And what's a big hairy ass goal, which is what people always call the BHAG, and that is to transform building controls, but do it forever, right? So that's the how. How are we going to do it? We're going to transform building controls. And then what is it that we're going to do? We're going to make the best building intelligence solution in the world. So that's the why, how, and what in terms of the focus in the company. So one final piece that I want to keep is that when you start on a new project, think about like if you had to make a monkey on a pedestal, the question is, what would you really start with first? Many people would suggest that, all right, let's start with the pedestal because that's a known entity. And this is where I differ, right? So the wisdom is, what you want to do is you want to tackle the monkey first, because that is the highest risk in your company. So take the risk out of the company, because you know how the pedestal is going to be made. That's the more simpler piece, right? So tackle the monkey first, make sure you get the hard problem sorted out, because that's going to be your moat. If you don't tackle it up front, you've not de-risked the company. And as you seek more investment, as you go through funding and financing, you have basically not burned through the risk which is required, and progress, you might actually end up wrapping yourself and tie yourself in a knot and have to pivot much later than what was really required, right? And in terms of pivoting, the key thing to understand is that if you want to fail, you want to fail fast. People keep talking about that. I look at failure is the first attempt in learning. It's exceptionally important that you keep that in mind, that if you're failing, it's just the first time, right? And as long as whatever you're failing on is above the watermark. At 75F, one of the key things we do is, you want to do an experiment, do it as long as it's not going to sink the ship. So think about, like, if you're doing an experiment to fail, is it above the waterline or below the waterline? Because if you have any explosion which is above the waterline, the ship is still going to be aloft, right, afloat. If it's below the waterline, it's going to sink the entire ship. So if you want to fail, fail fast, fail and make sure that you've made it deterministic, that it is going to not sink the entire company, but otherwise it's part of the improvement process. If you only had a 5% chance of success in any one single attempt, whenever, right, so that means a 95% chance of failing, only 5% chance of success. If you did that attempt 20 times, guess what? It's not going to be 100%. It's actually going to be 0.95 times 1 minus 0.95 to the power 20, which really means you're going to have a 64% chance of success at the end of the day. Right? So some things to keep in mind. If you want to fail, fail fast, do it multiple times, do it fast. And I think Churchill said it best, that like success really consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Right? So I just wanted to share these thoughts with you. Folks, thank you so much for all the great work that you're doing and for raising up your hand and being part of what is really required right now to save the world and save this planet. So, thank you so much.
Absolutely wonderful. I thank you so much. What a great mix of telling your story and offering some sage advice to these students. So I want to encourage folks, we've got a few minutes here. So if you've got questions with an amazing expert here to think about where you go next with your career and your innovations. You know, feel free to drop them in the chat. If any of our presenters want to come off video and ask a question, please feel free to do so. If our judges want to ask a question, you can also certainly do that, although they've missed a good deal of things. But I heard Pat giving a great reaction to the end game there. So I'm going to check the chat here and see if we have any questions. Otherwise, I'm wondering if you could, there's the what you've done with your company, and then there's this advice for innovators and entrepreneurs. Can you speak to anything about that intersection of like what maybe specifically was harder because you were in the energy industry? That's certainly not only for this group, but for what we're trying to do with Grid Catalyst is pretty important. Anything unique where that intersection is?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think one of the key things is if you look at much of the advice on startups these days, right? It's talking about the lean startup. It's talking about failing fast. But when they talk about failing fast, there's a different speed at which those people are talking about failing fast, right? The lean startup and Eric Ries, in some ways, in my opinion, do a little bit of disservice to what I call the hard tech industries, right? The hard tech industries are what we're doing. We're really working. Some people might be working in material science. Some people might be doing original piece. In the clean tech industry, there is nothing soft and fast that you can actually do. Sometimes you may actually have to set up a fab center, which might be hundreds of millions of dollars before you can actually get enough samples out that you can actually vet out your process, right? So keep these principles in mind, but also know that you are in your journey is going to be a little bit different than your colleagues in Silicon Valley, right? What you want to do is make sure you have the patience to do that. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you're hiring on team members and they're looking at what the growth trajectory of a typical startup is, that is, I don't think that is going to be your case for anyone who's involved in the hard tech industries, right? So that also means that you want to be careful and a little bit in terms of what kind of backing that you get from your financial partners, right? You want to get in people who are aware and who know about this particular industry, who are sensitized to this. We're very fortunate that there's a bunch of funding which is available in this industry now. When I started, that wasn't necessarily the case, but even people like BEV actually have a smaller fund in which they're funding companies who don't even actually have a prototype at this point, right? So much earlier stage, and they're almost becoming an accelerator and taking those companies through to the point that their products are getting validation. So huge amount of companies who focus specifically on the climate tech space. So this is very, very encouraging in my opinion from that perspective, but just know that the results might be a little bit slower than you would expect. Your journey is going to be a little bit longer. So it does require a huge, far more mission-driven outcome. So the people that you're hiring also have that same kind of mindset. So, but an excellent question. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, thanks for speaking to that. It's, I think it's a topic we could talk about for a whole session just on what those challenges are in hard tech and energy. So I'm gonna make that plug. Maybe that's a Forge North Launch Minnesota joint session at some point. The other question I was thinking about is, you're talking about being mission driven and what that's about. Is that the filter you use when you're thinking about who are the investors I want to work with and who are the partners I look for? And if not that, or that plus, like what else can you offer as these folks are going out into the world? How do I figure out who I should work with?
Right, that's another great question. So, but yes, that is the primary filter I look as, like who's got the long view, right? The other thing is I looked at is honestly, I wanted to make sure that the cap table actually looks good, right? So it may look like a little artificial, like why would money's money, but ultimately who you have as your backers actually is an important piece as part of your credibility, especially when you're trying to penetrate established industries, right? So when we were actually coming in, one of the key things is like going in an industry where people have been there for, like Honeywell and Johnson Controls have been there for 150 years, right? There's 150 years of relationships that the distribution channel might actually already have.
So that's very hard to shake. That means people are exceptionally reluctant to try out new companies and new products, which might end up jeopardizing what are their careers. They're far more stable careers than in IT, in the industry that we are in. So those people might be reluctant to try out new companies. So from our perspective, one part of it was like bridging this credibility gap, and having a great investor cap table was part of that piece. Either people who already had limited partners from the industry. So Building Ventures is a pretty decent example. Their limited partners are some of the large mechanical companies, so on and so forth, or some very big brand names like Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And even when we started, we were a much smaller company. The first person I actually took funding from was Jay Schrankler, who was the ex-general manager of Honeywell Controls. Right? So that was an important piece as part of a stepping stone in trying to figure out what that cap table is going to look like. I was fortunate that I self-funded for the first 3 years from a previous, because I had a great outcome in a previous company. But that was part of me, was to spend that time to understand this industry, because I didn't come from this industry. Right? So having that cap table, being deliberate, and having that thought out, just like you would figure out what your product roadmap is, you should also figure out what your cap table roadmap should be.
Absolutely. Wonderful advice. I could go on with the questions. I know we're running out of time here, so I'm gonna thank Deepinder for his time and his wisdom and insight. I'm really glad we recorded your session. I think it'd be great to be able to share that with more students, and I encourage folks to follow 75F. You know, great success story. More coming from your business as it grows and adapts. But you know, I hope everybody kind of leaves today thinking that's one great pathway to success that I can consider, and the advice that came along with that. So thank you so much, Deep, for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And folks, I just want to leave you with one closing thought. And I didn't come across this quote when I started, but somewhere in my life I came across this, and it says that life is meant to be lived. But if you live your life without making a difference, it makes no difference if you lived. So what you all are doing is exceptionally important work, like in huge gratitude for all that you guys are doing. So thank you so much for making that difference.
Thank you, Deep. What a lovely thought to leave us with. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. All right. So no pressure following that, judges. That's really exceptional, but so are our presentations today, and so are our students. So I'm going to turn it, I forget who, Ben, you'll have to tell me who's going first here.
I can.
Okay.
Then Pat, and then Anna.
Okay, great.
All right. So we took a lot of time to discuss, went over proposed all the proposed projects. We're going to start with awards in the bonus prize categories. I'll talk about geothermal. The geothermal category looks for an entry that demonstrates a clear understanding of the technology and market potential for geothermal technologies, and presents an innovative business model to significantly increase key exploration and operational opportunities. And we have decided that the UND Geothermal Vision Team 5 is the awardee for this category for our region. So
I think that is Shane, who had to drop off for another class. So I'm hoping that some of Shane's teammates are still in the session, and congratulations. Yep, good, Jessica, great. So we will make sure that the whole team knows about that, but congrats to that group. As a reminder, in these special categories, they will go in to a suggested group for the DOE to select who presents in the national event. So thank you, Ben, and congrats to our geothermal category winner.
Okay, so I am next. This is for the solar energy technologies section. This is the submission that demonstrates a clear understanding of the technology and market potential for optimizing performance and or reducing the costs associated with components, installation, and operation of solar energy systems and presents an innovative business model to significantly increase its adoption. And so we had a lengthy discussion and we decided that Team 11, the Iowa State Mobile Microgrid, is the recipient of that bonus prize opportunity.
Congratulations. I think Isaac is still with us and hopefully the rest of the team is still here. So congrats. Great work for that team. And thank you, Pat, for sharing that with us.
All right. So I have the pleasure of announcing who we decided is the recipient of the overall prize. And so for that one, we selected Team 8, the recycling of spent lithium-ion batteries. We were really impressed with the potential impact of that project and really thought about the way that that can benefit especially communities affected by mining. And we thought that the technology seemed to have a lot of promise. So really excited to recommend that one for the full prize. So congratulations.
All right. Amazing job, everybody. Just, I did not envy the judges for the decision making. So thank you all for bringing your expertise and thoughtfulness, and really excited that we have 3 winners moving on, but everybody just did a phenomenal job. Just so impressed with the groups. I have to say, I even was getting some texts from some folks who were paying attention and they, thought they just want to hire everybody that was presenting today. So great job really showing up and doing the work here. That is going to really be it for us today. I wish I had some like fireworks and confetti, but please just know we're all just really impressed and amazed with the work. I'm really grateful to our judges. I'm grateful to the DOE for creating this opportunity and supporting us as we move through our inaugural event. Obviously, just incredibly grateful for Deepinder for joining us today to share his story and wisdom. Keep an eye out for more good stuff from Grid Catalyst. We will be announcing our inaugural cohort in early March. So 5 startup companies that'll be doing demonstration projects here in Minnesota. So we just got to keep this momentum going, everybody. There's great things ahead, and I'm really excited that these teams and these students will continue to be part of it. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and thank you again, judges, participants, speakers, everybody, for making this such a great event. Good job.
Thank you, Nina.
Great. Thank you.